Masks can be funny, creepy, or just plain weird. Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. I'm your host Emily and today we're going to count down our list of the top 10 evil people who use terrifying masks to escape. Number 10. The Beast of Jersey. Edward Pensell began assaulting victims in 1960 on the island of New Jersey in the Channel Islands. He would attack people in a long raincoat and a strange mask, and all the victims recalled a strange musky smell after he had taken advantage of them. He would put on an Irish accent, would often tie a rope around the necks and wrists of his victims, and would drag them into a secluded area. They would be carefully selected and taken from their bedrooms after he had climbed through the window, abducted to a nearby field to be taken advantage of, and then returned to their homes. As Jersey is only 119 square kilometers in total, it is understandable how much fear he raised through his attacks because the attacker had to be someone everyone knew. His rubber mask was homemade and had black hair, and the tape he used to keep it on was later revealed to have marked his own face beneath. The mask was intended to conceal his identity, but also to strike horror in his victims. That was until his arrest in 1971 when he was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Number 9. The Phantom Killer. A 1946 string of killings in Texarkana remains unsolved to this day. Because each attack happened after dusk and most victims were young people parked in lovers' lanes. On February 22nd, 1946 at midnight, lovers Jimmy Hollis and Mary Jane Lowry were violently assaulted in their car. Both survived and Mary was able to describe their attacker to the police, a man in a white mask with cutout holes for his mouth and eyes. The next couple though was not so lucky. Over the course of 10 weeks, the Phantom Killer, as he was nicknamed, would slay a total of 5 and severely injure 3. A disguise may be strategic in reducing eyewitness ability to identify the culprit, says criminologist Dr. Melissa Hamilton, senior lecturer of law and criminal justice at the University of Surrey. Terrified residents scampered home before curfew each night as authorities on both the Arkansas and Texas side struggled to identify the elusive killer, but they never did. Number 8. Karl Tanzler. Karl Tanzler was a German immigrant who claimed that during his childhood he received visions of his one true love from his ancestor. Despite getting married and having 2 children with a woman who did not look like his vision, he always kept the face of his true love close to his heart. In 1930, after he had left his wife and kids, he believed he'd found her at last. While working as a radiologist in Florida, he met a young Cuban-American woman, Maria Elena Milagro de Hoyos. She was suffering from tuberculosis and died the next year. Karl paid for her funeral and visited her mausoleum regularly. He was obsessed with Maria. In the dead of night in 1933, he took her body from the mausoleum and back in his home in a child's red wagon. He put her skeleton back together using coat hangers, stuffed her with rags, and made her a wig from her own hair. She was dressed and put in his bed until 7 years later, following rumors of desecration of her body, she was discovered by police. While her body was covered in clothes, her face was a death mask of her former self created by Karl, and she was kept in his bed after the coroner had removed the rest of her body. Unbelievably, the statute of limitations had expired and Karl's case was dismissed out of court. Number 7. The Golden State Killer. The Golden State Killer, also known as GSK, flew under authorities' radar for decades and was initially thought to be 2 separate people. He is responsible for at least 3 separate crime sprees throughout the state, each of which spawned a different nickname in the press before it became evident that they were committed by the same person. It wasn't until 2001 when authorities found a DNA link between a string of home invasions in Southern California and a large number of assaults in Northern California. He was one of the most prolific criminals in California history, committing over 100 crimes from 1974 to 1986. GSK would wear a black ski mask over his head while committing the crimes to further confuse authorities by not allowing his victims to ID his face. In 2018, further DNA breakthroughs were made and the once elusive GSK was identified as Joseph James D'Angelo, who was a former police officer. Number 6. Ed Gein. Ed Gein was a killer and grave robber. He created costumes, furniture, and other keepsakes from the bodies of his victims. While he was only officially convicted of taking the lives of 2 people, Bernice Worden and Mary Hogan, he made a lasting impression on the American psyche and inspired fictional villains such as Norman Bates, Buffalo Bill, and Leatherface. A police raid on his house turned up masks literally made from human faces, a belt of nipples, and a corset created from a skinned torso. To be clear, he never wore these costumes when ending people's lives. Instead, he donned them in the privacy of his home. Some masks appeared mummified, almost dried out, while others were carefully preserved. A few had lipstick applied and looked more lifelike, and 4 had been stuffed with paper and hung on the wall of his bedroom, almost like hunting trophies. According to Wendell C. Watkins Sr., retired chief of detective for the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C., serial criminals are known for taking souvenirs from victims for express purpose of reliving and reenacting their crimes. When killers wear masks or costumes to relive the crime, it's paradoxical. It is a way of distancing themselves from the evil person who committed the crime, while at the same time making the connection with their fantasy or delusion more intimate. Number 5. BTK. BTK, an abbreviation he gave himself for blind torture kill, killed 10 people in Wichita and Park City, Kansas between 1974 and 1991. He would begin taunting police with letters, poems, and terrifying images. The images would depict the killer in various bondage states wearing different masks. Now, he was never caught, terrifying locals, and by 2004, the investigation of the BTK killer was considered a cold case. But after a decade-long hiatus, letters were received in 2004, and he initiated a series of 11 communications to the local media. This activity led directly to his arrest in February 2005 and a subsequent guilty plea. Now, following his arrest, police in Wichita, Park City, and several surrounding cities looked into unsolved cases with the cooperation of the state police and the FBI. They particularly focused on cases after 1994, when the death penalty was reinstated in Kansas. Police in surrounding states such as Nebraska, Missouri, Colorado, Oklahoma, and Texas also investigated cold cases that fit Rader's pattern to some extent. Now, he is currently serving 10 consecutive life sentences at the El Dorado Correctional Facility. Number 4. Lead masks case. Now, this isn't about the criminal wearing a mask, but the victims, yet it's still terrifying. In 1966 in Rio de Janeiro, the bodies of Miguel Jose Viana and Manuel Pereira de Cruz were discovered on Vindham Hill wearing business suits and lead eye masks. They were electronic repairmen from Campos Goitacazes, I hope I said that right, over 280 kilometers away, and their deaths remain a mystery to this day. As well as the lead eye masks, they were found with waterproof jackets, an empty water bottle, 2 towels, and a notebook. They were last seen buying water from a local shop, and Miguel was reported to have been in a great hurry and checking his watch a great deal. All that the notebook said was that they should be at the agreed place at 4:30 p.m. to swallow the capsules at 6:30 p.m. and to protect metals and wait for the mask signal. They were found with this paraphernalia and wearing the masks, but their bodies were not well preserved enough to discover whether they had swallowed poison. Why they would need lead masks that would protect against radiation, towels, and notes about metals is a mystery. Number 3. The Zodiac. The Zodiac took the lives of 5 known victims in the San Francisco Bay Area between December 1968 and October 1969. The Zodiac coined his name in a series of taunting letters and cards that he mailed to regional newspapers. Some of the letters included cryptograms or ciphers in which he claimed that he was collecting his victims as slaves for the afterlife. He targeted young couples and a lone male cab driver. 2 of his wounded victims survived. It was said that he wore a black executioner's hood with a chest piece with Zodiac's crosshair symbol stitched in white on it. There's only one account of the killer wearing the outfit, and that's when he approached a couple in a serene hillside at Lake Berryessa. Zodiac would attempt to end the lives of both, but only the woman would die. The man would live to tell the story of what happened and give his creepy description of the hooded serial killer. The Zodiac claimed to have murdered 37 victims. He has been linked to several other cold cases, some in Southern California or outside the state. While many theories regarding the identity of the killer have been suggested, the only suspect authorities ever publicly named was Arthur Lee Allen, a former elementary school teacher who died in 1992. Number 2. Peter Samuel Cook. Peter was an infamous criminal from the UK who would break into unsuspecting university students' homes, then attack and take advantage of them for approximately 8 months in the mid-70s. Now, this is terrifying in general, but what made the attacks that much more chilling was the fact that Peter would put on a leather mask with a zipper for a mouth. Etched across the forehead was the R word, aka what society calls criminals who take advantage of people. As his attacks became more and more brutal, the search for the attacker became more active. Peter, who was arrested following what was one of Britain's biggest police manhunts in 1975, was escaping the scene of an attack wearing a long blonde wig as a disguise when he was apprehended. At the time of his arrest, Peter was 46 years old and working as a delivery driver for a wine company. He was given a life sentence and eventually died in the Winchester prison in 2004 from natural causes. And coming in at number 1 is clown-faced cold case. The Florida clown murder, the cold case in which Sheila Keene Warren was accused of dressing as a clown and killing her lover's wife Marlene Warren. A person dressed as a clown, wearing a red nose, an orange-haired wig, and face paint exited a sedan and walked to the home's front door, police said. The person dressed as the clown was carrying a flower arrangement and 2 balloons. One balloon reportedly bore a picture of Snow White, while the other said, "You're the greatest." Marlene, seeing the offering, responded, "Oh, how pretty," before she was met with her tragic fate. Marlene answered the front door, and as the clown offered the items to her, witnesses heard a loud bang and Marlene fell to the ground. Then the person dressed as a clown calmly walked back to the car and drove away. Detectives theorized that she was so infatuated with the man that she would do anything to have him for herself and prove her love to him. Now, this case was cold for over 2 decades before authorities were able to arrest who they suspect in the crime. Multiple factors went into the arrest, including new interviews and a DNA match from hair found in a car near the scene of the crime. Now, dying like that would be terrifying, but a clown doing that? No way. Well, that's all for our list of the top 10 evil people who use terrifying masks to escape. Which one scared you the most? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm your host, Emily, and I'll see you next time. Peace.